algo learners, welcome back. Today we are going to go over the relative strength index. That was first introduced to us around 1978. It's a basically relative strength index is basically a momentum indicator. Its purpose is to measure the magnitude of recent price changes to show whether a stock is either overbought or oversold. And so basically what you'll see, it's an oscillator. It oscillates between 0 and 100, where 0 is an oversold extreme and 100 is an overbought extreme. But typically what we're seeing is if the RSI is, say, 70 or above, it's typically an overbought or an overvalued situation, or if the RSI is less than 30, you're looking at an oversold or basically undervalued situation. So anyhow, again, it's just something that measures magnitude of the recent price changes. You can see it at the bottom of the page here. We have a 14-day RSI, so basically it's going backwards and looking at this magnitude of price changes over the last 14 days. This is SPY, the S&P 500 ETF, and we're going back into 2019. Definitely wanted to show some extremes here. So you can see kind of the low point is around, well, you can see here, I'm trying to get it, it's right around 20.24, there's 19.72. And so you can kind of see during the initial phases of the drop in the pandemic, you can see the RSI definitely touching 20 or below 20. Probably not the best time to buy right then and there, because there was a lot more room to go. But you could still see in this range 29 still in an oversold position. Even here at March 23rd at the low, you're looking at 29, so it's still below 30, definitely in a oversold position. But then you have some extremes up here. On this day it's 82.22, so that's September 2nd, 2020. The RSI for SPY hits 82, and then you could see what happened afterwards. And then kind of the low point here, RSI goes to around 37, and the low point around here is around around 35, excuse me. So 37, 35. So anyway, you can kind of see some of the trends in the relative strength index. Again, it's a momentum indicator. But what we're going to look at is when a stock in our universe goes above 80 RSI, we're going to sell short. And then we are going to exit. We're going to exit once it drops below 70. And so, we're not gonna wait too long. We're not gonna let it go down here to around 43 or whatnot. Once it gets up here to 80, we're just, as soon as it drops, below 70, we're gonna exit. Conversely, if we have a stock that drops below 20, we're going to go long on it. So anyhow, that's and we're not going to stay in it, but until it jumps up to 40. And so once it jumps up to 40, we're going to go ahead and exit the long position. So anyway, those are our trading parameters. Let's go ahead and go back to our Bollinger Band code, and let's go ahead and copy all of that. Again, we're going to use the same structure for our algorithm. So Control C. Let's go ahead and strategies, create a strategy. Let's just call this RSI underscore V1. And I'll code my strategy. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and Control V. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to use, some people call this cheating, and I'm okay with that. It's just something to be more efficient. Blue Shift has a library. There's other libraries out there. Talib is another library that we'll end up using, but this is indicators, and we're going to import RSI. So they've already done the math for us. Let's just put it that way. They've already programmed the algorithm, math for the relative strength index. I mean, it is, if we were to just code it outright in Python, it would be pretty tedious. So we're going to go ahead and just use their technical library, and we're just going to be able to call upon the relative strength index as we need it. And so we're going to go back to our code, context params. We're going to change our window. We're going to change it to 50. And we're going to add a new item to our dictionary. The key is going to be RSI underscore period. And the value that we're going to assign to it is going to be 14. Okay, so we're just going to add that to our context params dictionary. We're going to leave our other dictionaries the same. Again, we're going to be doing the same setup. We're going to run the strategy. We're going to generate the signals. We're going to generate the target position and then rebalance. Okay, so not much to do differently here. I'm going to handle things pretty well the same way that we did in Bollinger Bands. A couple things going on here though. Because we're going to be using their technical indicator library for RSI, they require an array, an NumPy array, all right? Not a series. So when we get here into our generate signals, our series, if I were to print this out, you would see a timestamp plus price. Can't have a timestamp plus price in the series, or for the RSI. You just need the price. You just need the pricing data. You got to nix the timestamp. And the way that we do that is we're actually going to turn the series into an array, and we just do that by hitting dot values. And so if I were to go ahead and look at this type for PX, now it's going to return us a NumPy array. So and the same thing here for remember abv. So abv was not in existence if we wanted to go back to 2008 or 2009, and it will return NANs for the pricing, and we just don't want that to blow up the algorithm. We want it to just return zeros, because at some point AbbVie is going to come online and it's going to start generating data in our backtest, and we want to be ready for that. And so how do we do that with an array though? Okay, so it is a little different. And so we need to make sure that we imported our NumPy library though. Let me just make sure we did that. I know we did pandas. Here we go, NumPy as NP. Okay, yeah, I knew we had done pandas, but I just want to make sure that we had the other library in place. So NP. And so we're just going to do this little function here. And we're just going to run through px. And so what we're going to do is basically any ends that pop up in the arrays, it's just going to give a 0. And so that's what we want. That's just what we wanted on the last time, when we're doing Bollinger Bands. But this is how we do it with an array. Samey, if the last price returns a 0, then we know, oh, we don't have any data yet for this. We're going to assign it, the context signal, we're going to assign it as 2. All right, so we know that. Again, context or the signal 0 is just status quo. We're just, we're not in a buy position or a sell position. Context signal 1 is going to be a buy long. Context signal -1 is a sell short. Okay, so those are our signals. None of that changes. All right, so what do we do with the signal function? All right, well, let's just go ahead and knock all that logic out, and let's start with new logic. Let's just do ind1 for indicator 1 equals 0. All right, and so what is indicator 1? We're gonna that's going to equal RSI. So we're basically going to be calling this function. So RSI, we're going to run through PX, which is going to be our pricing. So our pricing up here, right, is basically our 50 days worth of pricing for the security. We don't need 50 days, but we're going to run it through anyway. And so, and maybe for another video, I'll show us what happens if we use less time in our window and kind of really how it works. Because what this function is going to do, it's just going to return basically the last RSI that's computed. But if we were to use Talib, it doesn't do that. It returns basically the last 14 days worth of RSIs, and we could even go further beyond that and get RSIs much further back. And so, but this particular function that BlueShift has, it returns the very last RSI, the most recent RSI, I should say. And so we're gonna remember we set our RSI period. And so in our dictionary, that's going to be 14. So 14 is going to come in that regard. And then what we want to see is if our indicator is greater than 80. So if the RSI is greater than 80, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to turn -1 because we're going to sell short. LF if R is less than, let's do 25, and 1 is greater than 0. All right, so I just want to make sure, because understand that, for AbbVie in 2009, we're going to get a lot of zeros for our prices, and which will return a 0 RSI. I don't want that to show up as, we're going to go long on AbbVie, because I'm going to take that out of the picture by saying, hey, no, RSI has to be above 0. And so that will pretty much kick out all of those stocks that we have no data yet for. So if those two conditions present themselves, well, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to go long. So that's a return of a 1, and else we're going to return 0. So, maintain status quo. So that's our signal function. For our long exit strategy. All right, so let me just come up here and get the same. All right, we're going to pull the updated RSI. And so if IND1 is greater than 40, we're going to return 0. So we're going to sell out. Or LF. Actually, it's just going to be else. We're just going to stay in our long position. Okay. And then we're going to get rid of this logic here for our short exit. I'm just going to copy this. Whoops. Okay. For our short, basically, I'm just going to say less than 70. What the heck? We'll go 65. All right. And then that will get us out of the position. Otherwise, we're just going to stay in. All right. So we're giving a little bit more time by saying, that it must drop, the RSI must drop below 65. Remember, we shorted when it got above 80 on the RSI, and then we're going to exit basically when the RSI drops below 65. And then if it doesn't, say if it's at 70 or 75, well, we're still going to stay in our short position. Okay. And so that's it. I believe that is our completed strategy for the RSI. And let me just see if it works for us. Pick some dates. See if we have any syntax errors. Okay, yep, I see it. Have to be exact here. Blueshift underscore library dot technicals dot indicators. All right. Takes a little longer to run RSI. Again, it's a lot more complex. You would have seen it. It's much more complex than doing the Bollinger Bands. But anyhow, so yeah, so we got the RSI up and running. Okay, so let's go ahead and inspect our logs. So they look to be doing what we want them to do or expect them to do. So we could see here our run strategy function prints the backtest date and time. So we got that. And then it proceeds into the generate signal function, which we print step 1, generate signal. So that's done. Then we proceed into step 2, the generate target position function. And then we get into step 3, the rebalance function. And then we do it all over again the next day. So it looks like it is functioning appropriately. You could even see 2 signals fired on the second day. You have 2 shorts, and then as we get into the third day, those 2 shorts are still in the portfolio, but we added 8 other positions, all shorts as a matter of fact. And then as we move forward, then we add some more until our exit signals start to fire, and then you can see that things start to normalize as we get into March. And we're averaging maybe 4 or 5 positions a day in our portfolio. So anyway, it looks to be working fine. So that is the relative strength index. So anyway, what we're going to do, as we get going into different algorithms, maybe using combinations of technical indicators and coding those, we're definitely going to want to get to the point where we can look at a backtest and make a decision of whether we want to go live with that algorithm or not. But before we do all of that, I think it's important for us to take a step back and go over the biases for back testing. Really critical to look at the biases because they can really throw a wrench into your live trading if you do not consider the biases and solve for those biases and minimize those biases on your back test. I've had it in live experience where it's just been where I ignored the biases and the live trading experience did not go as planned. And so you definitely need to consider these biases. Survivorship bias, there's optimization bias, which also some people call curve fitting. We have the look ahead bias, and then also time period bias. We're definitely going to dig into those, and we'll probably even throw in spreads and slippage as well, even though they're not really biases, but they definitely can impact your live trading strategy if you don't consider them in your back test. So and then once we go over those, then I think what we'll do is maybe we'll put together a combination of the RSI and the Bollinger Bands and come out with a trading strategy that combines the two indicators, and then we'll work hard to reduce the biases and minimize as much as we can the biases in that combination. And then we'll start to go back to 2008, 2009 and run the back test and really start to dig into the analysis of the back test to see if this would be something that we would want to go live on at some point, even if it's just paper trading. But what would be the criteria for us to even launch into a live session? So we need to go over all of that before we even get there. So anyway, again, if you like this video, please go ahead and hit subscribe, and remember, you got this.